bye week for the Aggies.
Yeah. They won that too. They're winning everything.
They actually, it was said, had the greatest bye week in college football history. They were phenomenal.
Yeah.
Didn't turn the ball over.
Nope.
No defensive mistakes. No offensive mistakes. Perfect coaching. And I was not here for the interview last week.
Yes, we learned some things.
We learned some things, and I am interested as the head coach of the UC Davis Aggies, live from Shredville. Tim Plough joins us right now. Coach Plough, good morning.
Boys, how we doing?
Great. Awesome. Always good talking to you. How are you doing?
Oh, man, fantastic. Getting ready to get back at it, man. Missed not playing football last week.
Well, I learned when you visited with Jason Ross last week, I learned that you do a little motivational thingy-dingy where you're showing your guys old fights. And I want to know more about this because I love the fight sports. And I'm curious, what have you shown so far? How do you pick them? You know, I know you said a little bit of this last week, but please enlighten me, Coach.
Well, first off, I think at this point, we're friends now, guys.
Yes.
Why don't you just come to a fight night?
That's what I'm talking about.
Friday night fight night.
You know, why don't you just come to Friday night fights? Come have dinner with the team, and you can see our next fight. You know, you should just make it happen.
We should make it happen, Jason. Yeah. That would be. It's like. Well, let me ask you this first. What is that more of like, I know it's a motivator, but is it one of those like motivator / lessons or is it just something, is it a bonding thing, all of it?
I think it's all of the above. I think I started doing it back when I was in northern Arizona. So probably, not like 10, 12 years ago. And I was just thinking of something different to do on Fridays because a lot of coaches are so uptight and they're like kind of anxious and like the team feels anxious. And by the time we got to Friday, I just wanted the guys to cut it loose and have a good time. And I'm a huge boxing guy. Like that is my little secret, and my dad and I watched it growing up. And so I have a kind of a bank of memory of fights. And so I'll just kind of think of the team we're playing and I'll think of a fight that I think kind of fits the game. And the best thing is these guys don't watch boxing anymore, so they have no idea who these guys are or who won the fight. And so I'll kind of do a tail of the tape and teach them about the fighters, and they got to pick a fighter, and they get all fired up and everyone's cheering on their guy. And then at the end, I kind of tie it into, this is how we're going to win the game tomorrow. We're going to be this fighter. And it's funny. Sometimes the game will be over and our guys will be like, dang, coach, that was just like the fight last night, so.
How far in advance do you have the fight picked out?
Some of them I have way in advance, like the Eastern Washington game. I knew I was going to do that for a while, but some of them I'll wait till maybe a couple of days before and get to our film guy Ryan, and we'll kind of figure out a way to cut it up to fit everything. But it kind of depends on the game. Sometimes I know ahead of time, and sometimes it takes a little bit of time.
Yeah, David, when I told you about this last week, didn't you say you had a fight for Coach?
Well, it's just I'm honestly curious. Have we delved into, for example, any of the Ward Gotti fights? Have we looked at De La Hoya Trinidad? Have we looked at Diego Corrales and Jose Luis Castillo? I'm curious if you go all over the spectrum as far as generations. If what's an example of a fight you've shown in the past?
Yeah, so the Southern Utah game, we showed Ward Gotti because I knew that was going to be a war, like a physical game, and we just talked about like you got to drag that team into deep water and land some body shots, and then we showed. I have not showed the Trinidad De La Hoya fight, but that has been one that I've shown in the past. And I have shown the Castillo Corrales fight. That has been one I've shown in the past. We did Hagler Hearns
that first
earlier
round
this year. Yep. And then we did the Rumble in the Jungle this last week. We did a Roy Jones Jr. fight earlier this year. So I know the guys against James Toney. So we'll bounce around the eras a little bit, and I'll try to dive into the '80s, and then I'll go into the more recent ones. But it's great for me because they don't even know who these guys. They didn't even know who Roy Jones Jr. was.
Wow.
I was shocked, So I had guys that were picking they're picking James Toney, like half the room picked James Toney, and I'm like, man, this is awesome. Yeah, they have no idea what they're about to watch, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was saying so he pits the ask who's going to win the fight, right, Coach? And you kind of put people on each side, like one half the team's picking this boxer, the other half. Is that kind of how it works? You split up the room like that?
Yeah, I make them get up and like split the room in half, so I don't let anyone sit in the middle. They have to all pick a side.
That's cool.
And the team starts cheering it on, and they get pretty fired up, and then after we just kind of tied into like, hey, this is how that guy won the fight, and this is how we're going to win our fight tomorrow, and I try to give them something, a little juice before they leave on Friday night, and I just want them to go to bed feeling like, hey, we're gonna get after these guys. I don't want them going to bed with any type of anxious thoughts of, oh God, that's our 7th walkthrough of the day. Does coach think we're, by the time we get to Friday night, I just want them to go to bed and let it rip.
It's funny because now I've never thought of these fights in terms of imparting a lesson. And obviously there's an honor system there. I would imagine nobody's looking on their phones to see what happened. But I'm thinking like, okay, like for example, Bernard Hopkins, Jones Jr., De La Hoya, like here's a guy who's in prison. Here's a guy who had a real rough go of it and fought, and then finally broke through and ended up having this insane career. We talked about De La Hoya Trinidad, and that's letting off the gas late. And be so it's interesting, Coach, to think about these past fights in terms of lessons you can impart. Foreman Holyfield, Foreman Michael Moore when he won the heavyweight title, never being counted out. That's really cool, Coach. I love that you do that.
Yeah, I mean, we showed Pacquiao Marquez.
Oof.
The 4th fight.
Yeah, the face plant
finally knocked him out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just like, hey, I mean, just because you haven't beaten someone in the past doesn't mean you can't beat them this time. I mean, and it takes one punch. I mean, there's a lot of good lessons, and I just think for me, and my dad has always taught me, like the ultimate competitive sport is boxing because you're by yourself and you're taking punishment, and what kind of will and determination and discipline do you have, and so I've always really enjoyed it and learned a lot from watching it. And once I realized that these guys don't watch it anymore, I knew I had something cool I could do because I'm like, man, there's so many fights that they don't even realize is great,
Yeah. But Coach, now you got the last portion of your regular season schedule. You had a bye. How did you and your team spend this last week?
Well, this, we spent Tuesday, Wednesday of last week practicing. We kind of tried to use the Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday after Eastern Washington as the same as we've always done. We're going to prepare like we're playing the game this Saturday, and then we gave them Thursday through Sunday off, so they got 4 days off, and then came back and we did a light practice on Monday and got back after it yesterday. So our big thing has been we need to get rest. We need to get guys back healthy, but also, I've been challenging the staff and players like, hey, if we get 2 weeks to prepare for somebody, that should be our best game of the year. Like we should play really well. And so I want them to get the rest, but I also want them to take advantage of the extra days to prepare for the team we're going to play.
Look at Jason turning it back to the interview that we should be doing. I can't help it. I'll finish this way. You ever think about incorporating UFC fights in, or is that too recent?
No, I think we've thought about it a few times, but I mean, full honesty, I don't get into the UFC thing much.
Gotcha.
Just because it's maybe a little bit. It just seems like a little bit too much sometimes.
Yeah.
And also, you're right. I think all these guys watch UFC, where they wouldn't know what would have happened. And I think that the cool part for them is they really have no idea who won the fight. So I just stick with the boxing. It's
such an old man conversation. I get it, but and I, full disclosure, obviously I love MMA. I'm a huge fan of MMA, but what some of the greatest fight years of my life as a fan was going to a buddy's house for HBO, fights after dark, and really the De La Hoya, Trinidad, Sugar Shane Mosley, Ike Cortez, Roy Jones Jr. era. Like every weekend there was some insane fight, and it was almost always for free if you had HBO. And God, Coach, I miss that so much.
Oh my gosh, I can't even. It really does bother me that there'll be a fight every now and then. And one of my best friend who was here at Davis with me, we still talk about boxing all the time, but it's definitely not at the frequency that I grew up with. So you just don't get them. You don't get them very often, So it's a bummer, but it's been nice for me to kind of relive them and show the guys. I mean, shoot, even the staff doesn't even know half these fights, so it's fun for me.
All right, so Northern Colorado this weekend. I know we got a break here, Coach. I usually have a story I get into. We don't have time. Let's just say this: the entire university at Northern Colorado killed my dog 3 years ago. I honestly, just out of nowhere, just did it for fun. Came over, killed the dog, left a note, and then went back to Northern Colorado. Could you handle them for me, please?
Well, I think the biggest thing is we had a lot of bear hunting going on because we played the Bears early in the year, the Golden Bears.
Yeah.
We let them get away, and now we got the Bears again. And we got to take care of business because I think down the road we might have a grizzly coming. I mean, we got to make sure we handle these bears. I mean, it's time to get after these bears. And for your honor and for your dog's honor, we got to get that done.
Turn them into the teddy bears, Coach. Yes. That's Coach Tim Plough taking on the hated Northern Colorado Bears. As always, you can hear those UC Davis Aggies games with the voice of the Aggies, Scott Marsh, right here on Sactown Sports. Good luck, Coach. We'll talk to you next week.
Guys, I had to say hi to my father-in-law last week. Of course, my mother-in-law got jealous, so I just want to tell my mother-in-law, Debbie, that I love her and hope she's having a great day.
That's weird. That's not what you said to us off the air, but we'll get into that some other time. Keep those in-laws happy, buddy. Thank you, Coach. Talk to you soon.
Boys, always a pleasure. Go find some joy this week.
You got it, man. That's Coach Tim Plough from Shredville. Always a blast. We'll take a break. When we return, Kings Rewind, baby. We'll do that right after Jason and